Hello, my sweet goats. Welcome to another live stream. It's been a while since I've actually had the chance to interview someone, and I've got the beautiful Roaming Millennial with me here, who, like, I've been friends with for a long time. I've wanted to talk to you live for a while, but I was like, I just felt weird doing it on Google Hangouts.
Right, because we're so close, relatively. I mean, it doesn't
Exactly.
make sense,
You're in my neck of the woods. It makes absolutely no sense that I would like just be like, hey, let's do a Google Hangout. It just feels weird. Just felt
yeah.
weird.
But I mean, I'm so jealous. You actually have a setup where you can have guests. So I have a studio now, but I'm not like guest ready. I have like one chair, and it's like I'm jealous of this.
One
this
chair.
Is
you know, you can go to IKEA, right? There's like just like an IKEA around us. That
yeah, but it's not just that, because then like you have to have like the different camera angles. We have to.
That's
like,
true. You have one camera only?
No, we have two, but they're like I was just mentioning to your producer, we're having issues with our camera setup right now in terms of like audio delay and stuff. It's a process. We will get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay. Well, how are you doing though? How was your day?
I'm good. My day was good. I just came from all you can eat sushi. I'm enormously full right now, so
You don't look enormously full. You look great.
I'm happy. Thank you.
That's good. I mean, I'm not a big fan of sushi myself, honestly.
Okay,
last
wrong,
time I went to sushi was and it's the same company, because you said you went to
It was
Sushi
Sushi
St. Catherine.
Sushi St. Catherine.
So
yes.
I've been to sushi Saint Jean. All right.
I've been there too, yeah.
And that place sucks.
It does.
People tell me, they were always like, every one of my friends that have gone there, they're like, it's a great time. What are you talking about? And it was cool. It was like the novelty was there because you get to order off
of the iPad.
yeah,
or
exactly.
The tablet, yeah.
But like, but it's probably the opportunity I took. Like, I always went in before closing, and it looked like the waiters were just not having any of it.
Yeah.
So they'd take a while to bring us our order. But I don't know why we're talking about sushi right now. I have no idea. But I have questions. I had questions prepared for you. The thing is, like, I look at my questions and I always tend to forget them. What I wanted to ask you, all right, this is something that it's come up. It came up in November, and it's come up again recently because The Simpsons made a response to it. But in November, I saw this news about this what's his name? What's this guy's name? Harry Kondabalu. This is a comedian. Have you ever heard of him?
No. I mean, I think I've heard of the article, but before that, no clue who this guy is.
I have no clue who he is either, but he apparently made a documentary in which he pretty much questions like Apu's existence in the show. He's like this. He thinks that Apu is problematic for you know. And so have you? What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on?
Well, as someone who grew up with The Simpsons, I think like 90s kids pretty much, we grew up watching The Simpsons. So Apu has a special place in my heart. And I know that I think the issue there is stereotyping, right? And even like Apu is a great guy, hard worker, family guy, but the issue is that even
successful businessman,
right? The idea that even positive stereotypes
He's
can still be harmful, right?
It's I don't know. I mean, really
but
don't think so.
that's their idea. I kind of disagree with that because, I mean, this is cliche, but stereotypes kind of exist for a reason.
Totally. It's weird that you back in the day, you'd be able to fucking say that and have no problem at all, and people would be like, yeah, it's true. But now when you say it, people are like, oh my god, you're enabling racism. Oh my god, what are you saying? You mean stereotype? What do you mean stereotypes exist for a reason? It's like obviously not for a reason. For a reason.
But yeah, like people have observed this trend of behavior. It's like there's that kind of stereotype of the Chinese family owning a Chinese restaurant, then sending their kids to school so they can not own Chinese restaurants. My dad and my mom, before I was born, while my mom was pregnant with me, they owned a Chinese restaurant.
Amazing.
Like,
and do they still own it?
No, they ended up selling it, and this was before. So I was born in Canada, and then we moved to Asia when I was really young. So this was before we moved to Asia.
How long do you live in Asia for?
It was kind of like on and off. We bounced around a bit, but probably for around 15 years.
Oh shit.
So yeah, big majority of my life. But yeah, I mean, and that's true. That was my experience. Or even like the overbearing, like Asian tiger mom, like that is 100% a thing. So I don't know how you can get mad at someone simply pointing out cultural trends.
Well, it's like Chinese people are bad drivers.
Right.
I was just heading home once. I came off of an exit, and there was this guy driving like 60 kilometers an hour on the highway, and the limit's 100. So you're supposed to be going like 110. That's the rule. Like that's the rule of the road. Going 110. You're not going 60.
Yeah, I go 110.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? So I'm not saying that you're a bad driver.
No, I am like factually, I am a bad driver.
Are you really?
Like, well, I mean, I only got my first ticket like last week, which for running I ran a yellow light.
I got that too. That's so bullshit.
I didn't think that was illegal.
No, it's so bullshit. It's such a ticket that they're giving you just because they're like, I gotta give a ticket
he was all like, when he came up, he's like, so do you know why I'm pulling you over? And it's like, honestly, no. But yeah, anyway, so I accept that, and it's true. Like, I am a bad driver. My father is a bad driver. It's just a thing. If you try driving in China, you will understand that this is universal, right? Because I mean, it's dangerous there, driving mainland China.
I heard, this is my friend who lived in China for a bit. He lived in China for like a year, and he says that pretty much if you were to, and tell me if I'm wrong here, okay? Because I'm pretty sure you're familiar with what goes on in China, but like, if someone were to run someone over there, and they were to be found guilty for running that person over, they would have to pay for pretty much their life. They'd have to pay for like their injuries and all that stuff. And like pretty much it's I guess, they would just like essentially have to take care of them. So people who run people over there make sure that people are dead.
That I'm not sure of, but I know when my family first moved to mainland China, because my dad's from Hong Kong, but my family did live in mainland China for a little bit. China has had this rapid economic growth, which has been amazing, but it's kind of, it's really a stark contrast to what it was like 20 years ago. So 20 years ago in like Guangzhou, I remember my mom was telling me the story that when they went there were no lines on the streets. When you're driving, you know how we have like lines separating like oncoming traffic? Yeah, that wasn't a thing.
We don't have them either, by the way. We don't have them either.
Yeah, so like we didn't have that either.
So they're pretty much Montreal. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. So now that we talked about that, now I want to actually, because I brought up Montreal, I want to know, how much time do you spend in the city?
Like actual Montreal?
Like how much time? How often do you come to the city?
Probably come every other month. Once.
Every other month.
Yeah, if that. The last time that I was in Montreal, I think was maybe in November. But I mean, I come during the summer a little bit more because I'm a baby when it comes to cold. So yeah, maybe in the summer a height of like once a month probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not a lot.
I'm here all the time. And I'm sure that you already know that I love this city, right? So I remember one of the first times I had a disagreement with you was when we were talking about Montreal and how you said that, you know, like the city is unclean, and I was like, no, it's not, because I'm like looking outside. Like if you look outside the studio, it's not clean. It's not unclean. It's pretty clean.
Well, I think the thing with cities, it's like there's a spectrum, right? Because I mean, like where we are now is not all of Montreal, and likewise comparing Montreal to another city like Singapore or something, you know. So it's like a spectrum.
Oh yeah, well Singapore has like laws.
Yeah. So but like, and I lived in Singapore, and another city that I was also in around a lot was like London. Again, London, especially like if you're on the main street, Oxford Street, extremely like it's immaculate. Same thing with DC, another city where I lived in. So it's all like kind of relative, and even then when I'm in Montreal, my friends are students and stuff, so we're kind of hanging out in studenty areas which aren't.
So like, okay, I got you.
You know what I mean? So it's or I'm in a student area or I'm in Chinatown. Not the cleanest places.
Yeah, Chinatown isn't the cleanest, but our Chinatown's pretty nice actually. It is pretty nice. It's got some really nice shops. I mean, there's some like those steamed pork buns.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also a new Captain's Boil opening up soon.
What's that place?
It's like a place where you can order seafood by the pound. It's really good.
Seriously?
Yeah, they have crawfish. It's good. We should go sometime. But yeah, I mean, I'm also the perspective of someone who does not like cities and is like not an urban person. So if you look at like any part of Montreal compared to somewhere where like I'm from, where it's like there's farm and trees, it's obviously just like a totally concrete jungle looking difference. Yeah.
Okay. What would be like one of the things that you, because right now we've just been talking and just like kind of, and feel free, by the way, if you're looking at the chat, because we got the chat in front, we got the chat open in front of us. I'm trying my best to avoid looking at it because anytime I look at the chat, I
can't help it when I live stream.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hate looking at the chat because pretty much what ends up happening is that I just look at it and I'm like, I start getting distracted. And then
someone called you handsome, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Sarah Jessica Farter, who's not actually Sarah Jessica Farter. It's like an actual dude that just calls him. Yeah. I get dudes calling me handsome all the time.
That's nice, though.
It is nice. I don't mind it. I don't have any problems with it. I don't have any problems with it at all. Okay, so we are right now at this point, we're just kind of like talking about things that are just pretty random, but I want to know where we disagree. And this is like, I feel like we haven't had a conversation in public where we have actually disagreed about something. And when people think about both of us, they obviously put us in one camp because we're pro free speech, right? We do share some conservative values. I'm definitely more liberal than you are, right? But they wouldn't think that. But what would you say is your biggest problem with Quebec?
Well, okay. So we have had disagreements, but obviously, like, we've never streamed before and just, like, not in video form. But for anyone who's watching who's not really familiar with Quebec's political system or just the culture of Quebec, Quebec is French Canada. So what that means is that, we have this huge separatist movement in Quebec who actively wants to leave Canada, become its own country.
Not that huge.
I mean, like, the Parti Québécois is huge. And, like, they're not, like, I don't think we're going to be having a referendum anytime, but, like, if you ask them, like, hey, like, this is possible, do you want to do it now? I'm pretty sure they'd be like,
well, were you in Quebec in 2012? Or 2011? I don't remember what exact year it was.
Actually, I'm not sure.
Well, Pauline Marois was elected as the premier of Quebec.
Yeah, so I remember when she was elected and I was not here.
Yeah, so pretty much what happened is that she was outed eventually. She just bounced, and now it's Liberal. And I think it's Liberal. I haven't paid attention in a while. That's the crazy thing, and this is we're gonna talk about this afterwards. But the whole thing about paying attention to Canadian politics. But I'm not worried about Quebec separatists in the same way. Like, I would talk to people who are constantly asking me to condemn the alt-right over and over again. I'm like, I'm not worried about them because I'm not, like, they're not, like, a concern for me. Like, it's not a thing.
Well, the thing with me is that I'm not worried about Quebec separatists like actually leaving the country, and actually I would support Quebec separation.
Okay.
Because they're a net taker. They're a net taker from the Canadian federal government. So I actually would support them. But
because they would stop taking from the Canadian government.
Yes. But the issue that I have with like things like the Parti Québécois is that they are very, very anti-English. So Quebec is one of the only countries. Another example would be Ukraine, where we actually have very strict language laws. And you kind of bring it up, the perspective of, but it's great if we have immigrants who arrive here from, non-Canadian countries. It means they have to assimilate. And that's great. But what actually happens is that it really ends up alienating the Anglophone population of Quebec. And if you study Quebec demographics, Anglophones have been leaving steadily in droves since, like, what is it, the
I have
60s or something. And so, yeah, that as someone
all my friends who are Anglophones all end up going to Toronto.
Right.
Like one of my recent exes, she left Montreal to go to Toronto, but she loves Montreal. There's a lot. That happens a lot, though. Pretty much what happens is that people love Montreal, but they have to leave. And I feel that bite too. Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go, because unless things change over here, unless businesses are willing to kind of come back here and start reinvesting, and unless people start to really lift this place up, it's not gonna happen.
And it's frustrating to me, because I kind of look at it at the perspective of, yes, the Quebec government, they're wanting to protect Quebec culture, and I can respect that, but the issue is that Quebec culture, the way they're doing it alienates native-born Canadians who I think should have every right to speak one of the legally recognized languages of Canada, which is English. But that's not how it is. And actually, one of the laws is that if you don't have a parent who was in Quebec that went to an English school, then you yourself cannot go to English school.
You have to go to French school.
You have to go to French school.
Yeah.
So my mom, they were having this whole trouble. I think it was finding her school records or something. I forgot what it was. I almost didn't get to go to English school. And it's just, to me, like, it's crazy that someone could be denied the right to go to English school in Canada.
English public school. You can go to English private school.
Right. But in Canada, where English is a legally recognized official language.
Yeah. I can understand. There's a lot of bad blood, though, if you look at the Canadian history and all that stuff. Quebec, French people they lost the war, okay? Yes. And then after they lost the war, they got a pretty shitty end of the deal. And it wasn't like the leaders of the French side of Canada that got the shitty end of the deal. It was really just the people who were most likely not really involved in the war. And so they had a lot of issues, and obviously now that those steamrolled and other things. Then you had the October crisis, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, you don't remember that, but do you remember?
And like it's their legitimate grievances that, and my grandmother, her family was like originally Acadian, and so what happened to them? They kind of like, I think my grandmother tells in the story, like they got, they called a meeting in church and then they kind of just rounded them up and shipped them off, right? So there are definitely injustices that have happened to French-speaking populations in Canada, and I recognize that. But in my opinion, like the way, like you said, it's kind of steamrolled into this whole animosity between English-speaking and French-speaking cultures, and because the English speakers are in the minority, it's like this bad history doesn't mean that we should have to lose our rights as English-speaking Canadians.
Well, Montreal is a bit of a bastion for like English speakers, even though but it's a bastion for English speakers that's being held back by Quebec law, in my opinion. there's plenty of opportunity for businesses to come here because I mean it's not really expensive. Like commercial spaces don't cost anywhere near as much as commercial spaces in Toronto or Vancouver,
where you
right?
have to like pay $1 million for a closet or something. Yeah.
It's absolutely insane, right? So, but there's so much potential here, but Quebec law is holding it back in the sense that, you know, if they were to actually just be like, all right, we're going to allow English to thrive on the island of Montreal so they can bring business in, it would just change everything for everybody. At least the surrounding boroughs. I mean, there's some boroughs, like if you think of it, you know, where I live in the West Island, so that's very English. And if you go to the South Shore, there's pretty much this area called Greenfield Park. That's also very English, but then it's also surrounded by French areas. I feel like the new generation of people who are coming in, who I've been able to have had the pleasure of interacting with, they are a little bit more in tune with this idea of wanting to make money and wanting to bring glory back to Montreal. Yeah,
and so, which is ideally what I would want to see too, because you know, I have history here. My parents met here. Like I've spent time living here. Like I would want to see Montreal succeed and thrive, like along with the rest of Quebec and Canada. But it's just the way, like, and even then, I don't even know if that represents the majority or just sort of this political class who likes to legislate these things. But yeah, I think younger people, there isn't this much.
No, they're not.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I've dated a French guy. You know, it's not like I hate the French or anything like that. And he barely spoke any English. We've communicated in very, like, each other's broken languages. I don't have a problem.
I went on a date once in 2016 where I spoke in English and she spoke in French.
Yeah, and I would be fine with that too.
It was totally interesting. I mean, I love speaking French. Whenever I get the opportunity to speak French, I'm like, sick. I get to practice my French. I get to work on that. But it's also like you said about, I really appreciate the fact that like people who come here know that there's a very strong French identity, and I like that. It's weird. I'm in a bit of a bind. Like I love Quebec's super French identity, and I love French culture. Anytime I've dated a French person, it's always been a great time, and like they're just so like full of life. It's such a rich culture. So. And it's the dominant culture, and I find that having that dominant culture has benefited us greatly, because if you think about tell me how much you can relate to this, okay? I see everything happening everywhere else in the world. I see everyone losing their shit everywhere else. And then I look around my city and I look around my province and I don't see the same thing. I see like people being a little bit more relaxed, happy, chilled out.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, so Bunty lives like kind of like 30 minutes outside of the city, right? I live probably an additional 40-ish minutes outside of that, right? So I live in a very, I think it's fair to say, like rural place. And that's what I'm most comfortable with. So, I mean, I don't really know about downtown Montreal. I feel like I can't speak like on how it is here because I just don't spend enough time here. But like where I live, it's peaceful, it's tranquil.
When's the last time we had a terrorist attack?
It's serene, right? You just don't have these things, and that's kind of like for the longest time what I think has kind of encapsulated Canada in general. But then, you know, at the same time, I don't know how long we'll be able to keep that up for. But I mean, for now, it's like Canadians, I think, are too apathetic. But at the same time, we sort of have reason to be, right? Things have been so good for so long. Yeah. It's kind of like we've never had reason to worry about these things. I think that might change in the future, but possible. For now, you're right. We have it really good here. We're so lucky.
Yeah, I think that it is changing though. I mean, I'm starting to make a bit of a shift from American politics, or talking about general American politics and like social issues, to more Canadian. Well, because the elections are coming up, right? So 2019 we're going to have another mandate, which means that Trudeau is going to be running again, and Andrew Scheer is going to be running again, and then we have Jasmeet Singh, who's the NDP, and those are really the three main parties we have over here. Those are the three main contenders. I mean, you have the other parties, but nobody really pays attention. No one's going to pay attention to Bloc Québécois or Parti Québécois or something like that. So which I feel bad if there's anybody in my chat that's like Parti Québécois. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but it's true. Like the only people that are paying attention to Parti Québécois are people in Quebec. But so what are your when this election comes up? Who are you? Have you been paying attention to who?
Yeah, so candidates? I still am a big Maxime Bernier supporter. So I was very, very crushed. You know, when now it's like Scheer's, which is fine. Like I would still prefer
Scheer's
him.
Cool.
Scheer's
cool.
But Bernier, so he was sort of almost this. He was like very pro-freedom for a Canadian politician. I've never seen a Canadian politician talk about things like personal freedoms the way he does, and he's actually, you know, pretty with things like guns and stuff. So he was someone I was like, wow, this is amazing. He didn't end up like winning his party's nomination, so he's not going to be eligible to be prime minister. But yeah, so the Conservative cheer, I would still prefer him over Trudeau, obviously.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny? I have ton of like liberal friends here
who are thinking Scheer.
Exactly.
I know, right?
Exactly.
It's so funny.
Do you know
Scheer
Easy on Me?
Scheer's such a Canadian.
Right.
I see him and I'm like, that guy's fucking Canadian. I love him. I was like, he looks like a Canadian dude. Like, I'm like, that guy, he has he's worked small business before, right? So it's like it's just like, and I find that small business is a very Canadian thing. If you look at Canada, it's just like, I mean, obviously it's a very American thing too, but like, they're just all over the place.
Yeah, and I love small businesses. Yeah. Like, I think that's awesome. And do you know Easy on Me? So he's another YouTuber, and he's actually, I think he's NBC.
I feel bad when I don't know YouTubers.
You should look. He's good. He's good. He's really fun, and he's like, he's not for social justice, but he's still very much a liberal guy. And he actually, I think I recently saw him tweet him out like, screw Trudeau, vote Scheer, Conservative. And like, this is coming from someone who is like very liberal in his policies, but he is still to the point where it's like, yeah, Trudeau is not cutting it. And to be fair, the term conservative, the Conservative Party in Canada is really not comparable to the Republicans in the US. But they still are more, they're still center left is the thing. They're still not right wing.
Center left. I think they're center right.
They're center left, but see, everyone in Canada is center left. Like even our right wing party, they're still center left because they're still like socialists is the thing. Like they want like and it's just so entrenched in Canadian culture and politics, we can't like get rid of it.
To kind of like help each other, we just want to like that's I think that the thing about someone said something about Canadians. The Canadians are like bleeding hearts, but there was something else that he added to it. I completely forgot what he had said, but it rung true at that time when I read it. I was like, oh shit, that's true. I mean, I think that Canadians in general just want to take care of each other. And like, I was thinking today, I was taking a shower and I was like, if shit were to hit the fan, like I would want like the neighbor I didn't get along with to be at my side. Cause even if I don't get along with him during normal circumstances, I know that at the very least, even though we don't get along, we're not at each other's throats. Mm-hmm. So we know that we can live with each other within the same vicinity. So I would like to have him at my side. So that's, I was thinking about that. I personally think Canadian politics have thank you so much, Tim Glenn. Just did a wiki on the Canadian election. Jagmeet, that guy, what's the deal? We'll talk about that in just a second. I want to know what your opinion on Jagmeet is, okay? But I feel like Canadian politics have kind of screwed me over in terms of how I'm able to interact with American audiences, because I'm so blasé about things. I'm like, whatever, it's not a big deal. It's all good. It's not doesn't matter. But then people like lose their shit because they're like, it really matters to them, because American politics are so divisive versus Canadian politics where we just like, we'll have a normal casual conversation with someone, be like, who'd you vote for? Like it's not even a big deal at that point.
Yeah. American political culture is much more, I don't know if like, I don't think it's necessarily divisive, but they're all in, they like, they live it, they breathe it. It's a huge deal for them. It's definitely not like Canadian politics.
Yeah. It is like one of those, what was it? It was like, I was talking to this one person, I ended up quote tweeting him, on my main account. And he was talking about Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. He was just railing on them.
Yeah,
I was like, yo, you got a two-party system. I mean, like half of the voter base is gonna vote for this guy. Like, what are you doing? Like, what? That makes no sense. You can't just dump half of the voter base into a thing. I would say that to the other side too. Like, why are you barking at Hillary supporters? Like, Hillary clearly said something that they identified with, so that's why they voted for him. And the same thing for Trump supporters. Yeah. And it's like whatever that thing was, it's up to you actually talking to the person to figure that out. So it's really ridiculous. I'm thankful for the fact that we have multiple parties, in the sense that it really kind of diversifies the pool, in the sense of like who we really need to pay a bit more attention to what their policies are, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think?
I am not a fan of the parliamentary system, which is I wrote a like 15 or 20 page essay about it when I was in college. Really not a fan. And I think France's election system is the best, where you have multiple rounds, because I think the worst thing that could happen is that you end up with a leader that most people did not vote for their party. You know what I mean? And when you have multiple parties, it's very, very possible, right? Because there's a plurality of votes, right? Sort of thing.
That's true. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
they have like multiple rounds and they pretty much just weed out people.
Exactly. So that way you kind of see like, okay, well, if I had to choose,
doesn't it still come down to like a 50-50 vote at that point?
Yeah, it still does. So like with the recent rounds in France with the whole Macron election, there was like recent rounds, and so you can vote for, I think it's like 6 parties, and then it gets narrowed down, and that way you can, because there's that whole debate about whether you vote strategically or not in like American and Canadian elections, and at least in France's system, it kind of it eliminates that, and you can kind of also still vote your conscience. This is who I want to support. If I had my way, this is the person that would be in power. But then you get the later rounds to say, okay, well, I guess since most people prefer either this person or this person, and it's gonna be this person or this person, I can then with those options. Yeah, so I think that's the best system.
Okay. Can you just tell me a little bit? Let me just read this real quick. Mark Levin, thank you so much for the $5. Bunty, take a lesson on modesty and cover up some of that cleavage. Glad to see this super polite red Canadian combo. Also, where is Jellybean?
Jellybean is my puppy.
Your puppy.
Yeah.
I didn't know her name was Jellybean. I just saw puppy and I was like, that's a cute puppy. And
yeah, her name is Jellybean. She is still at home.
So bring her next time.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, maybe I will. I think she'd be okay. Like she's kind of past the stage where she wants to just eat everything now.
That's totally fine. She could just sit right there. That'd be so cute. That'd be amazing.
Oh.
That'd be incredible. Yeah, sorry about the cleavage. I mean, that's just my thing, guys. I like showing off my chest hair. It's just something I do.
It's very luscious.
And I'm not doing it for Rome. It's just literally what you guys know me. I do it all the time. I'm a hussy that way. I'm sorry. All right, so tell me a little bit about your past. Like, what got you? I mean, you said you spent about 15 years in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much of your childhood contributed to who you are online?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wouldn't say who you are online. Who you are just in a person and what you do professionally.
Yeah. So growing up, it was a pretty interesting experience. So I was growing up in Hong Kong. That's exclusively where I guess my core childhood happened, because I was around 9 or 10 when I left. So kind of like your formative years, right? That for me was in Hong Kong, and I was growing up in going to a British school in a like Chinese speaking country, but that was at the time a British colony, and actually the handover took place where it was ceded back to China when I was there. So it was a really, really interesting way to grow up, because I was going to sort of like an international school. So I grew up with British kids, I grew up with American kids, local Hong Kong kids, Singaporean kids. There were people there from everywhere, and actually there were actually quite a few other mixed kids as well. So it was kind of like a multicultural, diverse way to grow up. And I think that, first of all, has probably very much shaped the way I see things like race, for example, or just like culture in general, because my experience growing up was people from different places. And yeah, like I guess we did have different cultures, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we shared core values. So we could get along. And yeah,
so the whole thing about like, certain races not being less prone to that doesn't really jive with you.
Right. I mean, and when I think it's,
me,
and that's kind of what has helped shaped my views of individualism as well, because totally. It, just seeing people like, oh yes, this is a Chinese person, Indian person, because there was such a mix of us growing up, it just never made sense. And I think kids, when you're playing together in the playground, these views that we have on race, they're very much something that we pick up from the adults around us. So I didn't have any of that growing up. It was a nice way to grow up. I really liked it. And so we lived in Hong Kong until I was about 9 or 10. Then we moved to Shanghai for a little bit. Went to another international American school. So again, same thing. Kids from everywhere whose parents were expats or just kind of stationed abroad. There were missionary kids there. There were army kids there. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the first time I actually came to live in Canada was when I was around 11, and so that's when I came to Quebec. Lived here for about 2.5 years. Moved again to London, then to Singapore. So yeah, I've moved a lot. Back to Hong Kong for a little bit, and then finally ended up going to university in the U.S.
Okay. And what did you go to university for? Political sciences?
Yeah, so I first started at the University of Southern California, and I was doing a screenwriting political science double major.
Screenwriting, really?
Yeah. So
you can write a screenplay?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. I didn't know that about you. I can write a screenplay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what, and I still like, I love movies. I love cinema. That's still like a huge passion.
You know who has a really
of mine.
bad opinion on movies?
Who?
Ben Shapiro. Has a terrible opinion on movies.
I've heard him talk about the Oscars, but I haven't heard him.
I agree with some of the things he says, but he said I got pissed because he was talking. He said that he doesn't like Quentin Tarantino movies. He thinks that Pulp Fiction's overrated.
Well, that's wrong.
Well, I was like not really happy with that. I was like, really, Pulp Fiction overrated? I'm like, are you crazy, Ben? Like everything he says, I like most of the stuff that he says, but yeah, that was like, I was like, all right, you get back.
I'm
glad that's one thing I dislike about him, so it's good.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with Quentin Tarantino, I don't like his politics, but I think like artistically he's probably one of my favorite directors. Him and like Guy Ritchie before Sherlock Holmes.
Well, yeah, even though Sherlock Holmes still stylistically is a very nice looking movie, like it's really well done. Like but yeah, no, definitely.
Like I like Lock, Stock, and Smoke and Mirror. Yeah, that's my kind of Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, for sure. So like, so you did so. I was actually going to be going into political sciences before in September last year, but I got a job at a marketing firm, and I was like, this is what I normally do anyway. So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just work at a marketing firm. And so I didn't go to school. How do you feel like being educated in this has really helped a lot? Oh,
absolutely. Oh my gosh, it just.
I knew that was going to be the answer. That's why I get a little bit defensive of you when someone was like, I'm not gonna name him, but like, they were like, oh, she's stupid. And I was like, dude, no, she's not.
Yeah,
she actually went to university. What are you talking about? I'm stupid.
No, I mean, and I don't think it makes you stupid or smart, but it's just I've had the opportunity, which not everyone has, to actually really go in depth in some of these issues. I was able to like study like concepts of human rights, American government, Western philosophical traditions, and things like that. Former Soviet and Russian politics. My minor was Middle East studies and Arabic, and I've had the opportunity to like, I don't know, get into the nitty gritty of this stuff. And I've always been interested in politics since I was like 14 or something. So this isn't something that I just started being interested in university, but once I got into university and kind of learned more, my views did change about quite a few issues once I kind of got more of the. You go for it if you need to.
I just burped.
You don't need to.
I just burped. I'm so sorry.
No, go
Thank you,
for it.
by the way, for the $5. I don't know what that means. But thank you, Bold like a leopard. Thank you very much, Farrakhan. Farrakhan, isn't that guy Louis Farrakhan? And that guy, the crazy black dude that's like super anti-white.
Yeah,
that
okay. People have,
okay.
Can't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, but yeah, the political science, it was a great experience. I learned so much, and I also actually got to like intern on Capitol Hill in DC, which was another, I got to see the legislative process unfold. I was there for the Obamacare rollout. I was there for the, I guess, like Syria crossing the red line thing. I was there for a government shutdown. It was just an amazing experience, and as someone who actually like is really interested in politics and government, it was invaluable to me, and it's definitely shaped how, like, what my opinions are, how I present my opinions, and just I know it's kind of like a joke major for a lot of people. I have political science. It's not like, investment banking, but for me, it was perfect for what I wanted.
Well, when I was gearing up for going into it, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do videos on the stuff that I'm covering. So like, if I'm studying something, I'll do videos on it, and just like kind of like a branch out that way. But yeah, then I just got into full-blown marketing, and I was like, all right, well, that's that. I still consider going back to school for that kind of shit, just because I really feel, and the reason why I hold back from talking about certain topics is because I just feel unprepared for them. Like, no, there's no way. It'd be stupid for me to say something about something when I don't really fully grasp it. So the only thing I do excel at is people. So I'm able to talk about people in social situations very easily, because that's how I kind of got to wherever I'm at. But yeah. So what this comes up all the time, okay? And this is something that like it was annoying at first. It was hurtful at first when I first heard it. Was you get called a token. I get called a token, and I call this stream a tale of two tokens.
Yeah,
and like
that's clever, by the way. Like, I laughed when I said that.
Yeah. And what if someone right now were to come to you in person and call you a token. Like, how would that make you feel?
Well, it kind of delegitimizes it's an attempt to delegitimize your entire platform, your presence as someone who believes what you do while being of the race that you are. So to me, it's very, very offensive. And the awful thing is that the people who call us tokens, I think, are a lot of the times people who claim to be on the progressive side of things, who want to elevate voices of, people of color.
I agree. Yeah,
so
it's really shitty. Very hypocritical.
It's extremely so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's, and then people sometimes try to call me a hypocrite because I lash out at people sometimes. When they lash out at me, I'll just fire back at them, and they'll be like, "Oh, Bunty, you're not being that nice. Oh, the mask has slipped. You're not really that nice."
You're upset I've called you a Nazi and accused you of such and such unwarranted? What?
It's like, dude, it's like, really? Are you serious? Like, I've noticed the way you kind of go at detractors. You'll pretty much you do it in a much more I would say ladylike manner. You go about it in a really nice way. I go about it I like calling them rats, but then again, I also call my friends rats, and it's super funny to see like how my friends react to being called a rat. Like, I can call my producer a rat right now and he'll be like, whatever, you're a rat too, and it's like, no problem. But when I call someone who's actually being a rat, they freak out. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's like you call them out.
Well,
it's like
the funny thing is that like all of these, and I mean I'm not going to call them troll because that word is so charged now, but like a lot of these people who will just like throw out meaningless accusations, lie about you, slander you. I also find they're some of the most sensitive and thin-skinned people you will ever meet, which is really kind of ironic, I think, but it's absolutely true. Yeah.
I think that most people, when they go on an offensive or they're on a constant offensive because they're afraid of actually having to go on a defensive. Yeah. Because if they have to go on a defensive, then it's going to be really hard for them because they have a lot more in their lives to fix than anybody else does, in my opinion. And that's why I tried to take a step back from being on an offensive all the time. And it was just like, I feel like Twitter on its own, like, I know most of the creators through Twitter. It's hard for me to consume all of their content. Whereas with a tweet, I get to take in your personality, throughout the day. I'll see you interact with people, be like, okay, this is the personality. This is Roaming Millennial's personality. But on YouTube, I'd have to watch like lots and lots of videos to actually see what's going on. And I do watch your videos, but I don't watch all of your videos. So most of my understanding of people is 100%. I would say like 90% through Twitter. Right,
because with Twitter, it's more like a conversation you're having with them versus almost like monologues that people have prepared or presentations people have prepared. So yeah, it's very different. I think Twitter is a lot more personal.
Exactly. Yeah. So the thing is that it ends up being really hard engaging certain people because of this offensive stance that they have on the constant. And sometimes they're built their brands off of being on the offensive, which means that they have a lot of takedown pieces, or they're like, this person's doing that thing bad, or that person's doing this thing bad. And this is not about one person in particular, or it's literally something I noticed in the commentary community, and then I noticed in the skeptic community. I noticed in almost, I would not say every community. I mean, if you look at the makeup community, it's just them doing makeup, but like there's generally people will get views off of taking people down. And when you build a brand off of that, people expect that all the time, and then it could happen to you. And I saw it almost happen to some people that I care about, and I was like, I don't want this to happen to me. Yeah. So I had to back off of that, and I decided I'd be a little bit more conversational about it. Now, being a little bit more conversational, it makes you a little bit more of a people then will try to label you as a fence sitter. Now that's another thing that gets happened. Yeah. You don't get thrown out as a fence sitter though.
I mean, it depends who, right? If you talk to the alt-right, I'll be labeled like a dirty centrist or something. Even though I think I'm pretty loud and upfront of like what my opinions are. But I guess it's like all who of like what you're talking to, because I feel like if someone has actually consistently watched your videos with an open mind, I wouldn't call you a fence sitter on anything. Like, I think you're pro free speech, civic nationalist, who's loves his country and is, very for like equal rights, regardless of like, race and gender and stuff like that. To me, those aren't fence sitting opinions.
No, they're not.
I think those are all pretty clearly delineated opinions, but I think what a lot of people may equate to fence sitting is like you're saying, like conversations with people, which is annoying because I don't think that's fence sitting at all. It's not at all.
It's literally like being like, all right, I disagree with this person, but I need to maintain some order, some sense of civility to talk to this human being so that I can convey their ideas to my audience. So that my audience
the thing is that what a lot of people I don't think understand is that even if we disagree with them, how are we supposed to even fully understand the depth to which we disagree with them unless we understand them first, right? So like that like a lot of people think we should just be like from the get-go, like right off, like, no, you're wrong, blah blah blah. And it's like, should we not try to listen first?
I think it comes from a place of fear, and it's unfortunate because I also feel like, once again, this has everything to do with the environment that they're already in. So if they're in Europe, where I would feel like, see, right now, if someone were to ask me if I wanted to go to Europe, I would probably say no, because I don't feel welcome in Europe right now, just given the situation. And the reason why I don't feel welcome is because of this sense of white nationalism. And I feel like white nationalism could very well be much stronger in Europe because, well, Europe is mainly white, you know? Whereas in Canada and Montreal, I don't feel it at all, because we've been multi-ethnic for quite a while now, like a significant amount of time. So I feel okay to travel between the States and other countries, but when it comes to Europe, I don't want to go there. I don't want to. I'm like, that's a place where I'm just like not feeling the most hot about. Probably just being ridiculous, because I'm pretty sure that if I went in, people would be chill with me being there. But like, I just, based upon what I've been consuming from the media, which is people like you. I mean, because you're also my source of media, if you think about that. You're not just a friend. You're someone that I look to and I'm like, she's saying something, I should pay attention to what she's saying because I care about her and I trust her, which is actually interesting. I never thought about it that way, that I like look at you as a source of media and news, and that I don't like, I would trust what you have to say. So fucking crazy.
It's a big responsibility too for me.
Well, don't worry about that. Don't worry. No, I'm not making you.
Okay, better not screw this up, or else I might steer. Okay.
Yeah, you're just gonna mislead me. You have the power, Roaming, to guide me along the path. Like, no, but yeah. So it's like, by the way, hi, sticks, hex and hammers, 666. How you doing, Sticks? My man, how you doing, bro? Sorry we haven't had the chance to talk in a while. But thank you. If you ever come by in Montreal, we got a couch here for you, all right? And it's not a casting couch, so you don't have to worry about any kind of crazy shit, okay? Yeah. So I was gonna ask you. I already asked you what you kind of led to the whole thing about Quebec independence, but we've talked about Quebec. We've talked about all of it. I mean, I'm looking at the questions.
We've just hit all.
We've hit all of them. We really have hit a lot of them. Okay, so what are you looking forward to the most in this year? This is such a basic question. Like, what are you looking forward to? Like, what's the store for Roaming Millennial? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think with this, so I have a new show on CRTV called Uncensored, and the thing is, I'm actually coming. It's almost 2 years ago that I started my channel on YouTube, which is for me like really,
which is amazing, by the way, because I was looking at your views. You got over 13 million views. You're nearing 260,000 subscribers, which is really cool. You're actually about 100. When I last checked, you're about 151 away from it. I was just checking your numbers. I was like, hey, good for her. So just really crazy. That's really, really good. And I think let me just throw this out there, okay? And tell me if I'm wrong. You can always tell me if I'm wrong. You can publicly disagree with me. You can be really severe about it. But I think that you being a lady has really helped in that.
It's hard for me to say either way because I've been a lady my whole life. So like obviously we all are kind of limited to our own experiences, but I've never been very successful in anything to do with popularity before.
Because when I first met you, I was like, oh, she's really quiet.
Yeah, and I am super quiet. I'm just like a quiet person. And so like the other jobs I've had, I was like a research assistant. I was a teaching assistant. I was like a research analyst. Those are jobs where like I've never really gained a lot of attention for doing anything like ever. Like I was not a cool kid in school. So it's like being on YouTube now, everyone's like, oh, of course, like people like to watch and listen to you because like you're a female, and I'm like, that hasn't been my experience the rest of my life, so it's hard for me to say. And
well, the media is a different beast from real life. Life,
like then if people are just like going around listening, like wanting to like listen to pretty girls, like shouldn't that have translated a little bit into like, I don't know, like high school, college? Like come on.
It's different. Real life, people like what they can attain, right? And it's also they like watching, right? So you may have had admirers who would never come up to you and say anything, but those admirers can easily translate into viewers. The thing that I have noticed is that my attitude, which I bring, I mean, you've seen me on video, you've seen me in like person talking. my volume is maybe down 10%. Like otherwise, I'm pretty much the same person on Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff, right? My attitude, I feel, doesn't translate super well over onto the platform because, well, at least with certain people, because I feel like some of the people who are a little bit more closed off or maybe feel a little bit more antisocial will see me as like, or equate me with their bully or something like that. I feel like I give off that boisterous attitude where they're like, oh my God, that guy thinks his shit doesn't stink. Oh my God, that guy's a douchebag. You know, I just get that feeling based on how I interact with people, how I see people, how people see me sometimes. So I feel like real life, because in real life that's not an issue. I walk around places, nobody gives me any problems, and most of the time I'm like, you know, I'm welcome to a lot of things. Whereas on the internet it's a little bit harder. My popularity on the internet doesn't compare very much to my popularity in real life.
Because for me it's like the inverse.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, something else that I've really noticed is that I wouldn't say that me being like necessarily female has a like means anything on the internet, but I do notice that like when it comes to like there aren't many female conservatives. Like that's true. But I think the issue there is like, and obviously that has helped me stand out, right? At the very least, it's made me different.
Well,
from
me being a person of color and like, or colored person, I like to say. I hate saying person of color.
That's the racist one now.
I know, right? It's so crazy. I was like, you just added a word in the middle of it and you just switched them around. Like, really, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But no, I feel like that's helped me stand out because people, and then of course it comes in the whole token thing. Well, oh, you're just doing it to be popular. It's like, no, trust me. If I wanted to be popular, I would be like you. I'd just be saying the same things that you want to say.
Yeah, and it's I've been like accused of not really having like conservative beliefs. It's like, okay, I have been in College Republican since I was 17. I was interning for Paul Ryan when I was 19. Like I have like given conservatism a lot. I've like, you know, since I was a teen. Exactly, before YouTube. So yeah, when people say stuff like that, it's frustrating to me. It's like, okay, hey bud,
they don't know your life story. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's chill that I get to ask you these. I that's why I love these interviews, because I rarely want to like, I don't want to, the whole point of these interviews has never been about like getting to the core issues. It's always been about like getting to the person and figuring out where they're coming from so people can have a better understanding of what they do. And yeah, I'm trying to figure out what time it is. I don't want to like run. Oh my God, we have been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. That is crazy.
It has not felt like an hour.
It hasn't felt like an hour 20 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, look at you. You have your own Scotch pour.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, dude. Thanks. So how old are you?
I am 23. I will be turning 24.
You're so young. Holy shit.
Yeah. I graduated when I was 20. So I got a little bit of a leg up on things because I skipped 2 grades in high school. Yeah. Okay. But now I'm starting to feel
what's your IQ?
It's different every time I take a test because I haven't.
What's it been before? Like, what's the highest it's ever been?
The highest it's ever been is 145, but it's between 135 and 145.
You know, like I did a stupid internet test. I got 121.
That's still like.
I'm sure it's okay. I'm
sure
I'm not.
I think that's still like at least 1 standard deviation above the average. Like that is a high IQ.
I not to suck my own dick, but I definitely do see myself as an above average kind of person. If you follow me on Twitter. If you see what I do on YouTube, it's obvious that I'm a little bit of an above average kind of guy.
I would say so, yeah.
But I mean, I don't think I'm a genius. And I do think that there's plenty of things I could be doing better. And I think one of the things is I need to be reading more. I don't read enough. Do you read a lot?
I try to. And the thing is, when I was in school, you kind of have to when you're a university student, but I was reading like 600 pages a week, you know, and granted I did not retain a lot of that.
I've never read 600 pages a week in my life.
I mean, you don't have to, right? I mean, and no one, like, that is overkill because at that point you're not retaining stuff. But now it's like I'll read a book like every month. The last one I read was Jordan Peterson's. I really like that. The one I read before that was C.S. Lewis's Problem of Pain. I try to read a book a month, but like, you know, it's hard just time-wise.
Yeah, I can agree, especially when you're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Do you spend a lot of time on Twitter?
Twitter is kind of like my waiting for something else, so I'll do this sort of thing. So it's like if I am...
So you're able to put it down and then forget about it.
Yeah. And
Good
it's
for
like...
you. Holy shit. I wish I had that ability. Put it down, just forget about it. I'm there sometimes, like I'm editing a video and I'll like open it up and I'll be like, I'll swipe up to see my notifications.
It's hard if I'm in the middle of something with someone though. Like if then that's hard because
well, I'm in the middle of something all the time with everyone all the time.
Yeah, and it's hard because like I mean, this is so stupid, and I think this kind of highlights an issue that I have that I should work on. But it's like, you know, like I'll be in this thing, and I don't want to make it look like I'm kind of wimping out of this like big Twitter confrontation. But at the same time, like I'll have my grandmother who's like, okay, like we have to leave. I have a doctor's appointment. It's like, no, Nana, like this like person that I don't know on Twitter, I have to respond to him. So it's like it's kind of and it's like a. Yeah, it is a problem, and I need to get better at when I'm actually in something, just being like, okay, I don't need to respond to this person anymore. I've made my point. Like
what I learned, okay, and all the times I've been off of Twitter forcefully because I've been banned so many fucking times, is that nothing anybody says on the internet really ultimately matters.
Right. Yeah.
It matters in the moment when I read it. I'm like, shit, that sucks that they said that about me. They don't know me. They don't know me. They don't know who I am. Like, what are they saying? But it's the people around me that like really matter the most. So the people and the thing that I've been trying to really get at is that if people can build a tribe in real life, like an actual network of people, no matter how big that network is, it could be 5 people, but if those 5 people are like the strongest, coolest people that you know, like they're really like the people that are the most like legit people, it doesn't matter. Like 100,000 people on the internet could talk shit about you, and it wouldn't matter because they can't touch you because you have a network of people that are really there for you.
And like that's what I'm finding too. Like, I mean, like I kind of feel like a lot of the novelty of like YouTube drama or Twitter fights has also worn off the longer I've kind of been around. So that that kind of helps, but also. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Someone could say like the worst thing or make this completely slanderous response video to me. That totally is just like lying. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I love my friends. I have an amazing boyfriend. My family is super supportive. I have a gorgeous puppy. So it's like, who cares what these people say? Like my life is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And they can't do anything about that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously how your life is actually really factors in a lot to how much online comments affect you. So during the winter, I was having a rough go. So anything that was said about me online was like, oh my God, it was so hurtful. But when I tried to compare my attitude to today, like, or recent weeks to what it was like back when I had a job, when I was like working at a full time at a marketing firm, and like I was just constantly going out, my attitude was so different. Like it was just like whatever. Like I would just let things roll off my back, you know. Now I feel like if something like the Tariq Nasheed situation happened, I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this, you know. Which is interesting. It's just really interesting, like how it's just important to have a good life, I think, ultimately. And I think that people forget that the internet cannot provide that good life.
That is completely true. And like I've looked at like my life since, you know, because like 2 years is a pretty long time to like have a channel and be doing this, not full time at the beginning, but like I've kind of seen my life change in like a lot of ways. And I think I'm a much happier person than I was back then, but it's not because of channel related stuff. It's totally because of like things happening IRL away from the internet. And like, not that my channel hasn't, like, I've been so lucky, so blessed, but really like what makes me feel happy at the end of the day is the stuff that's happened off screen. So
cool.
Yeah.
What has been the greatest challenge for you on YouTube? The greatest challenge, like the one thing that you were like, you hit, like I feel like I'm at my greatest challenge. Like right now I'm so fucked. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Where has your oh shit moment been? Like, are you like, oh my God?
Well, kind like being on YouTube and creating content for 2 years. It's been challenging trying to maintain a consistent audience and consistent views when the political climate has changed, when my own interests have changed, because you know, I kind of got popular making anti-SJW content, and I still obviously hold those views, but at the same time, I personally can only make so many videos about cultural appropriation. Me personally, right? And it's not that I, you know, don't find it interesting anymore, and if there's like a new development about it or something, I will jump on that, absolutely. But a really big challenge that I'm still going through is the fact that, you know, a lot of the people who maybe subscribed to me because they liked this video that I did about, you know, like feminism or something, I'm still going to talk about feminism, but, you know, the way things have shifted, I kind of feel like that's like, our side is winning in terms of that, right?
It's on the internet at the very least.
On the internet at the very least.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep, beating a dead horse. And at the same time, I feel like I'm, I studied politics and I'm kind of interested in what's happening there. But the fact of the matter is, when you are a content creator, people subscribe to you to see specific things. And, what I like about being on CRTV, and maybe some of my subscribers who like my anti-feminism content don't like it as much, is that, yeah, it gives me a chance to talk about things like the news. And my challenge is trying to get people who might like me talking about subject A to say, oh, maybe I want to hear her talk about subject B too, because 2 years is a long time to keep talking about the same thing, and I don't want to become irrelevant because this topic isn't cool anymore. So it's like trying to grow as a creator, but also have like maintain the audience that you did, or otherwise you have to start from scratch, and that's even harder.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's like, do you have any last things that you want to say in terms of your experiences as a YouTuber? Something that you'd like feel like other YouTubers who would be watching right now, other people who are thinking of getting into like social political commentary would benefit from?
Well, I think just do it. I talk to so many different, either patrons or just people on Twitter, like, hey, I'm thinking about starting my channel, and just do it. It's never going to be a perfect time to start your own channel. You're never going to have the perfect equipment. You're always going to have that sense of, oh, like this isn't good enough. No one's going to care.
I have that all the time. Yeah, I see your content. I see my buddy Chris Raygun's content.
Oh, he's amazing.
I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, how am I? But then I look at, but then I see my friends reacting to my content. I'm like, okay, it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I love your content. I think the last thing I watched was like the thing about like your Twitter ban, but not really, like not your rant. I watched that as well. But like, yeah, and like there are people who are gonna like your content for what it is. You're always gonna improve as you go along anyway. And I mean, YouTube as a company, I have my issues with, but I love the YouTube community and the fact that it just allows people to share their opinions. So
yeah,
if you want to start and like be involved in this really cool community, I've made so many friends from being with YouTube, and like I've grown into my own voice. So just do it. Don't let like any of your like insecurities or whatever hold you back. So just do it. Rip that Band-Aid.
Thank you so much for being here, Roaming. I hope that you had a good time.
Yeah, I really did.
You did. Thank you guys very much for watching. There was a. Actually, we're just gonna go answer that one last question.
Sure.
There was someone said, "Do we have favorite composers or a favorite composer?" Thank you so much for the $5, by the way. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so I really like Danny Elfman in terms of like modern day contemporary composers. I also really like Hans Zimmer. But obviously
Hans Zimmer is like a go-to,
right?
Yeah, I feel like anybody can say that.
But I think Danny Elfman on top of him,
Okay.
just because like the atmosphere. I'm into like Tim Burton creepy stuff, and he did Serenata Schizophrenia, which was like his own a little opera thing that was also really good. But I guess in general, maybe I don't know, Handel. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know composers at all, so I can't even answer that question. I mean, I guess I can say Hans Zimmer, but that's because I'm just like whatever. Like he's done the music score for like a bunch of amazing movies, and I can't even name all the movies. Honestly, he's just done so many. He's like the go-to guy. But I mean, that's the most poser response I can give you. I'm literally not into composers. I'm not into that kind of music. I listen to everything that's good. But yeah, okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Okay, this was a really interesting experience. The first time I've actually had someone in person interviewing them. I scared the shit. Honestly, I was so fucking nervous.
Why? It's just me. We've talked before.
I know we talked before. I know it's just you, but it's like, it's about the questions. It's about like everything. My life right now, Roaming, it is so garbage right now. You have no idea. There's so much crazy shit going on in terms of like, you're fine. Don't have to feel bad for me. I'm just saying it's my fault. Everything's my fault. I fucked up. Okay. But the thing is that it's just it's been like one thing after another, and I'm just trying to pick things up again. So I'm going to start doing more of these. So it's just, you were the first interview that I've started that I've done since I've felt this renewed sense of energy to doing YouTube again. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys next week on Monday for another interview. I have no idea who I'm going to be interviewing you. I'm going to probably have to get someone. I'm going to get someone. I'll get someone, but it may not be here, but it'll probably be, like a Billy the Fridge kind of thing. Thank you guys so much. I love you. Bye-bye.